Welcome, everybody, to Strengthen Suffrage. We're excited to be with you this evening to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the U.S. Women's Suffrage Amendment, signed into law on August 26, 1920. I'm Marianne Johnson, president of the Chicago Women's History Center, and we're co-sponsoring this broadcast along with Chicago artists Ginny Sykes and Carron. The Chicago Women's History Center is delighted to join with these two talented women artists on this historic occasion to honor the contributions of all women to building a more just and equal society. Recognizing that the Women's Suffrage Amendment was a pivotal milestone in a struggle that went back more than 400 years, we also acknowledge that it was only a partial victory for women. And indeed, the struggle for the vote continues to this day, particularly during this important election year. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Happy Women's Suffrage Day to everyone. Let's keep up the fight for justice and equality for all.
I started working on 100 Women Collaborations Beyond the Veil out of a collaboration that I was doing with an Italian artist in Naples, Italy. Her name was Teresa Mangiacapra, and she was part of a feminist collaborative performance group that started in 1970 called L'Inimiciache, which means the nemesis. And Teresa and I were working on a project together in which I envisioned a background for a performance consisting of sculptures of women. The idea being that public spaces have always been inhabited by male figures, historical figures, but really never by women, except for allegorical figures like virtue, charity, chastity. And so I wanted to counter that by creating a chorus of images that would be part of our performance space. In the interim, Teresa died, and the project was handed off to me, and I took it into a new direction. I photographed 12 women in my studio, and I created these large-scale banners. And those were then used in a performance that I did in Italy. It's kind of a test run of this chorus idea. I decided to develop it further, in mind with the fact that 2020 is the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage and achieving the right to vote. So I decided to photograph 100 women. So the pose was one hand on the heart and one hand on the abdomen. This pose, to me, has to do with seats of knowledge that have been disavowed by patriarchy. So the intuition, the gut knowledge, the seat of that is here. And of course, our hearts know a lot. And in patriarchy, I believe there's been an over-rationalization of what knowledge is, and it has excluded these forms of really important understandings. And I wanted to push that forward. Taking the pose, a kind of magical change came over people. And I think they inhabited this idea. I interviewed and photographed women, starting with my own personal circle, women who are working, women who are retired, women who haven't joined the workforce yet, women who are mothers. I asked for actresses, dancers, or other artists to be part of the project. And I really wanted to build a relationship because it's a very personal thing to have your photograph taken. I would love to see it in museums where it can be in dialogue with a number of the sculptures that represent male historical figures. And I'm fortunate in that I will have one iteration of this project here in Chicago coinciding with this launch at the Lucerne Regional Public Library, showing 5 banners of specifically African American women. Really excited that this project will be on the south side of Chicago in a very important library that has a collection unparalleled of African American history and documents. I hope for this broadcast and this experience that people will take away from these images that they too are part of this movement, regardless of gender. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that everyone has access to voting, to make sure voting is fair, it's really a crucial time. It's my idea to create this offering, I suppose, to the suffrage event, and to say we're here, we're contemporary, we're still working on these issues, and we're committed to seeing this go forward into the next phase.
Hello, welcome to our centennial celebration of women's suffrage. My name's Queen of Luxuria, also known as Carron Little, and I'm going to perform a couple of poems from my Spare Rib Revisited project. For this project, I went to different countries and different cities and interviewed women between the ages of 20 to 100, really thinking about the span of 100 years and wanting to investigate and research what it meant for ordinary women to live an emancipated life, and really thinking about what tools for liberty women were developing. So I decided to select two poems from this project, one from Lucerne and one from Liverpool in the UK, and they both centre around the idea of health and really thinking about the health of women's bodies. So the first poem is for Claudia Booker, and it's entitled My Body. And when I interviewed Claudia, she shared with me the difficulty of her first birth. And in researching this, I discovered that 50% of women have a bad experience giving birth for the first time. And this is the most sacred moment in all of our lives. So, thinking about care and what is needed to really create a system of care as we move forward. So I'm going to transition into this next piece. This poem is for Claudia Booker, and it's entitled My Body. A spin cycle draws lines across my body, bearing the labour of life, work and play, staining time in rhythm, staining time in body, staining time in rhythm, staining time in body, in concentric circles, in concentric circles, carrying weight in flesh, carrying weight in flesh, existing in ethereal moments, measured in concrete. The clock stopped in smoke, a second erupted, a lifelong love, exploring bodies and all they have to offer, rooted in the elements of earth, fire, water, and air, and the smells that linger, attached to the tree of female cycles, a mother's daughter, bearing the fruit and staining our time, bearing the fruit and staining our time. A spindle spits as liquid burbles along a long tight rope, exploding stars in circular formation, sparking the universal family ties, tantalizing love into fire, love into life, love into play, love into fire, love into play, love into life, drawing flesh in interconnection, reaching platitudes beyond convention, rotating in steam, building in form, recreating the roots of intention, time and time and time again. Children born in concentric circles, a decision made created a reality, defining the future, juggling identities of artist, mother, lover, and daughter, and woven into the frisson of existence, becoming a miniature globe in rotation, of form, function, and belief, in a system of creative inheritance. A cycle of 6 and a system of 8, carrying a golden egg, I was left to die like a dog in the corner of medicine, rejecting the needles. In this moment, where were you all? In this moment, where were you all? In this moment. I am more than your trial and error, more than your 24-hour clock, the knife of medicine, cutting our bodies, drawing lines across our bellies, scarring our beauty, taking our dignity. What I needed most was lost. What I needed most was lost in the tableau of chaos. Working in concentric circles, I enveloped into nature, working in a daily routine of earth, fire, air, and water, as liquid spits through my linear tubes. Crystal and salt bathed my body, attached to the cycle of life. I bleed for my mother's mother. I bleed in the inheritance of life. Bursting bodies in nature's voluptuous colours, waiting to cleanse, to reveal, to return again to the moment of creative contemplation, distilling liquids into form and nature into wisdom. Thank you. I'm just going to do a little text switch. And Sylvia has dedicated her life to activism surrounding the health of women's bodies. And she was also the person who designed the pussy hat that went viral for the women's marches in 2016. So this next piece is for Sylvia Hickens, and it's entitled A Long Road. If my body were bound between two sleeves of a book jacket, what would it say? Would it perform out of the page, or would it remain stitched between the sleeves, hoping to reach prosperity, stamped in different languages? If my body were you, what would you say? Would you dance on army tankers in the fresh morning dew, or chant harmonies at Greenham Common? Would you look the policeman in the eye who defied humanity as he stabbed me in the left shoulder with a sharp metal fork? Would your body bear witness to history, stitched with the scars marking the date, sending viral news stories across media channels? Would your body listen to the visible spectacle, wearing an orange jacket, flashing alarm bells marking the target? Would your body listen to the violence of history, pass down the line of a ringtone written in Morse code, a war won, a war lost? It's all the same when the bombs drop, killing our children, destroying our homes, lives lost in the wreckage. Would your body listen to the ghosts in this city? Would your body listen to the needs of this city? Walking in numbers, performing in silence, wearing white doctor's coats, counting hospital beds. What does your body need? What does it need stitched between pages and words, if not liberty? A life dedicated to tomorrow. Tell me, what does that look like? Tell me, speak it. Tell me, speak it. So thank you for joining us today in the centennial celebration of women's suffrage, and big thanks to the Women's History Centre for hosting this.